Hey everyone, it's Eric with FirearmTutorials.com, and today we are going to revisit the famous GS Custom Swager down here in the bottom. So I posted a couple videos on this probably about a year ago, one to install it and one to just kind of review it in operation. And I got a lot of mixed comments. I got a lot of people a couple that loved it, a lot of them that were skeptical, kind of wanted to know more information about it, and then the rest of them were kind of just negative comments, either based on other things they had read, their own personal experience with this product, and said, you know, it's junk, it doesn't work, I hate it, yeah, I couldn't get it to work. So I kind of just wanted to cover some things in this video that'll show some definite problems with it, some of the things that I think are incorrect, and then some things that I think you could just fairly easily solve. So let's go ahead and review what's happening here. So you see when this part comes through the bottom here, we're swaging, so that's going up into the case and effectively reaming out the primer pocket so that you can seat a regular primer in there. One of the problems with this is that you have to have this shell plate just dead on the money, because you've got, I don't know, maybe a few thousandths of an inch inside here between the inside of the shell plate and where that swager comes up. Now, the thing that you have to be very careful with this about is that this shell plate has to be adjusted almost perfectly with really no room for error. So whenever I put different shell plates in here, whether I'm changing calibers or whatever, I always do just a simple check. I'll try and keep my hands out of the way here, but I just kind of tap on the shell plate like this, and if I feel and hear any wiggle, then I know it needs to be tighter. Now, when you do that, especially with, like, say, pistol calibers, I just did 9mm, you can tighten it to the point where the shell plate won't spin because it'll be obviously too tight. Then you back it off a little bit, and then you'll feel just a slight amount of resistance, but the shell plate will be tight, and that's what you want, because you want to make sure that when your shells are going into the sizing die, like I'm using in Station 1, that you're getting a consistent D-prime, but more importantly, the full-length sizing of these guys. Just make sure that you have that adjusted. Now, when I say there's really no room for error, what I mean is I can tighten this to where I get no wobble, but then, again, we're talking thousandths of an inch. When I push this forward, the right side of that swager is actually making contact with the shell plate, and that's where I think people are having problems with this, where they're bending their shell plates or breaking their shell plates because that swager is coming up from the bottom and actually making contact, and force against force, it's going to bend that shell plate. So like I said, mine, I always pay special attention that it's always moving freely like this, and if it's ever catching the bottom, then you need to spend some more time adjusting this. One of the other issues, and I'll demonstrate this swager coming up through here is more than likely swaging a dirty primer pocket, right? It's got carbon in it, and I don't know, whatever else type of remnants there are from a fired shell. So every time that it goes up in there, it's going to get just a little bit of dirt on it, and a little bit of dirt, and a little bit of dirt, and after a while, it's going to get enough in there that it's going to stay in a stuck position. You'll see down here that the spring is completely compressed, and then when you release it, that spring is going to stay compressed until it comes back down here, hits the bottom, in which case it usually knocks it free. But what can happen, and this did happen to me, is the bottom portion here of the swager will actually crack and or break. So that did happen to me, and I had to send it back and just got a new bottom metal part and had to attach it myself. So I'm going to actually make sure that this thing is tight before I start doing this. I covered this in the video, but you want to make sure that you're doing that with a 9/16 wrench. It's kind of difficult to get in there. So let's go ahead and talk about this, and I'll show this once I start swaging them. But what I'm using here is this Lee case lube, which in the world of case lube just pretty much sucks. So what I'm doing here is, you see, I'm just taking a Q-tip, which is dirty, because like I said, it's getting some of the carbon and stuff on there. I'm just going to squirt a little bit out of the tube here, put it on the Q-tip, and then just rub it around like so. And that will work It's kind of an arbitrary number. Maybe sometimes it's 10 cases, sometimes it's 30. Every once in a while it'll be something like 50 will go through there. So that's kind of how you combat A, the shell plate bending, and B, the stuck cases, which is the majority of the problems you're going to have with this setup. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the swage unit is tight down here, and then I'm going to run some through. I'll probably do 30 or so, just so you guys can see what it's like when I do it. Okay, so just, when I do this, I'm not trying to go as fast as I can. And when I'm swaging, I kind of ease into it, and then at the end, give it a little extra just to do the full swage. But what you don't want to do is just be going in and out, just slamming it in there, because that's when you're going to have problems with, the shells getting stuck and stuff like that. Even if you're going at a moderate speed like I'm doing here, it's still way faster than using a dedicated swage unit that's off the press, because we're still resizing, depriming, and swaging all in here. Unless you have a 1050, you're not going to be able to do it faster than I'm doing it here. So, and just like everything else, once you get used to how this press feels, those of you that have reloaded a lot of anything really in this press, you know how it feels when you seat a primer. So even if you don't have the little stick in there that will beep when you're out of primers or getting low on primers, once you've done it enough times, when you go to seat that, you'll feel that it's not seating a primer and that something's wrong. Same concept applies here. Once you get used to how it feels when you're doing the swaging, you'll know either when something's not right or if you swage a case that's already been swaged. So let's go ahead and run some more through here. I'll show you what happens. It's probably about time to lube this because it's starting to stick. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And a good time to do this is like, you see I'm out swaging the case feeder here. So, if you're using an automatic one, you wait for your cases to fill up. It's a good time to go ahead and lube it up. Out of cases again. But I'll tell you, just like reloading anything in this press, like it's not just you buy the machine, you put the stuff together and you just go. Like you got to pay attention to what's going on here, and you get used to, feeling things and this and that. So is the design perfect? No, but short of buying a 650, if you want to process a lot of brass and you've got one of these machines, this is still a valid option. You just still have to go through a lot more stuff than, say, a super swage, where it's just, you're sitting there doing it. It's just a tedious, monotonous process. But what I'll tell you with this, first, the super swage, is that I never had a problem with the swage depth being too deep. Now, when I say that, if we look at this, the way that this is working, we'll say that this is the swage unit, even though it's the gauge, is it's going in there and it's going up underneath there and reaming the pocket out, basically. With the super swage, if you have that shell holder adjusted, or the little pokey rod thing, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you have that set to where it's going too deep, what it's going to do is it's going to go in there and actually push further into the case, which can mess with your primer pocket. what you'll end up with is, you know, a primer pocket that's deeper. Not that the primer is actually going to seat deeper, but when you get inconsistencies like that, that's where, you know, you could run into pressure issues or just inconsistent accuracy because the way that the primer is igniting the powder. So that's one of the downfalls of the Super Swage. What is it, the 600 or 650? Other than the fact that it's just slow. So I'm going to go ahead and run these through some more. See if we get any other hang-ups. So far, so good. I want to address something else that somebody said in one of the comments talking about it looks like he might be swaging already swaged brass. So we'll go ahead and grab this guy out of here. Let's see, what do we got here? I don't know what this is. It looks like a PSD PMC case because it's got that little red ring primer in it. But this is just a factory spent case. It's never been reloaded. I'll go ahead and deprime it, and then I'll put it through the swage gauge, and we'll see what we got here. So, okay, so here we go. You know, you can see that it does not pass a swage test. Kind of gets stuck in there. So let's go ahead and swage it. And now we'll run it through. Ah, it's the wrong side. Much easier. So that will easily accept a primer. And it's not over swaged either. That doesn't go in. So just about effortless that it goes in there. Usually with these, even if they're swaged, I can kind of get this gauge in there sometimes, but it takes a lot more effort. And that's one of those cases where if you were to put it in there to seat a primer, you'll probably get it in there, but you're going to run into a little bit of resistance, and then you worry about, well, did it actually seat properly, or did it, you know, kind of mash the primer up in there? So again, guys, this isn't perfect. I try to give you guys, you know, just like a unbiased view of these things, but you know, it's worked okay for me. Like I said, it hasn't been flawless. You see, I've got the problems with the cases sticking and things like that, but you know, for what it does and what it costs, you know, it's still a decent option. So for those of you guys that either have one of these and, you know, quit using it, or you're thinking about getting it, but you're not sure, I mean, I hope I demonstrated enough stuff about it to kind of lean you one way or the other. It's obviously not for everybody, but it's working for me. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.